Welcome everybody to another edition of Amplify Your Business. Today we're going to be talking about startups. We're going to be talking about tackling sales with great big huge multinational customers, and also what it takes to go from idea to the research development phases, which can be quite long, and then actually developing this product that you're going to take to market. So there's going to be a lot of stuff we're going to be covering. And today I am privileged to have Anthea from 2S Water on the show. Anthea, tell me a little bit about yourself and what 2S Water is all about.
Well, thanks so much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this all with you and hopefully get some great insight. So 2S Water is a company that have developed a sensor to detect metals in water in real time. Now, I know that sounds like a pretty specialized piece of technology, but it's actually a huge market need. We originally founded the company looking at municipal sites. So if you look at Flint, Michigan, here where I am, it's arsenic and lead in the water. It's a big concern for companies. Right now, we're generally more focused on mining. We've actually found that they have more trouble with this than municipalities do, because of course they're generating metals in water in their processes. And then these metals go on to be released into the environment with, to cause problems in the supply chain there, or to cause issues with communities downstream. They cake onto machinery and cause productivity issues. And of course, all of this metal escaping into water is in fact their revenue that they want to be capturing. So it's a big and pertinent issue for them, and we think we can help.
And talk about a huge issue, because when we talk about Flint, Michigan, I mean, the lawsuits that came out of that, not to mention just the toll that it took on all the human lives that were consuming these heavy metals that were getting into the water system. You guys have got a product that is going to solve that problem then, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if you wanted to know the number, by the way, it was 8,000 children with permanent disabilities from that one incident. It's absolutely inhumane what metals in drinking water can do. So yeah, that was really what inspired us to get started on this journey.
Okay, so you must be an engineer or something. So that's your background, and you've been working for, mining companies or municipalities, saw this as being a problem and knew that you had a solution. That's how this usually happens, right?
So I came at this a little bit differently than most entrepreneurs do. My partner and I identified the problem. We became aware of, things like Flint, Michigan aren't the only ones. So it's always coming up on our radar that there is in fact issues around this. So we decided to figure out if there really was a problem. I think we drove to every municipality within local distance to talk to the operator, give them an interview, because the other thing that we couldn't believe is that there wasn't a solution. We thought there was definitely a solution, but we just couldn't find it. So we went out and we interviewed the people on the ground doing the job. Sure enough, there was no solution. There was a real problem, and there was a desire to have a solution that could detect it. So from there, we went down and started reading scientific papers until we found what we thought could be the solution in a laboratory, and took that to our local university, and away we went.
So for everybody who's watching, I was being a little facetious there, because in an earlier conversation, you had mentioned to me that, yeah, you didn't approach this from the, hey, here's a problem, we've got a solution for it. You guys actually went looking for a problem as entrepreneurs, as people going, we want to start a business. What is that business going to look like? You probably saw some things like the Flint, Michigan issue on the news. And so then it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. It seems like they're not, people aren't addressing this. And so then you started digging deeper and deeper with no background really in this space, right? Which is very different than what happens in most entrepreneurial ventures. And so just speak to me a little bit about that, because I think that that's just absolutely fascinating. So did you guys have like up on a wall or a whiteboard all these potential ideas of potential businesses? Like, how did this one come to the surface?
Actually, we did. Yeah, we
Yeah.
had about 8 different business ideas that made it into our decision making tree. Both my partner and I had different requirements that we wanted in that business. I wanted it to be an environmentally conscious business that benefited the world. My partner wanted recurring revenue, because you need both types in a business for it to succeed, right?
Yeah.
So we had a few different ones that came together, and this one continually rose to the top as had a market, had a potential solution. There wasn't a lot of competitors in the market that we were competing against. It just really was the right problem to solve.
So yeah, it's checking off a bunch of the boxes that you guys both have then.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And so was this a like were you entrepreneurs before, had other businesses, and so this is just another one that you were like just trying to find an additional idea or business idea, or fresh out of school, or how did this come about where you decided that you're going to be entrepreneurs?
More than the first. So my partner is a 10x entrepreneur. I'm a 3x. Most of mine were lifestyle before this, but um, I've been working with Tony for the last 13 years now, and heavy into oil and gas.
Okay.
So that hence my desire to move into a more environmentally conscious line of business. And hence his willingness to start a new business, because we've been doing this up down curve in oil and gas over and over and over.
Yeah.
And eventually you decide you don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where we really went out looking and saying, where can we diversify? You know, we're in Alberta right now, and we need to diversify our economy away from oil and gas. Not that oil and gas hasn't been very good for Alberta, and not that we don't do a great job of making that a generally environmentally conscious industry. But diversification is so important. So that's really kind of the lens that we took when we addressed this problem.
Okay, excellent. And so with the experience that you have in the oil and gas sectors collectively, then you're used to dealing with these big multinational companies, probably some of the big problems that these huge industries basically, or businesses within the industry are facing, just in a slightly different angle than what you've taken with this particular product, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. We've been dealing with big multinationals up to date. It looks like we're going to continue dealing with big multinationals in this business. But that's part of where you can do the most benefit in the world, because they're the ones producing the most CO2. And by helping them deal with that, we can have the most benefit possible.
Okay, and so you guys come up with this idea. Now that was in 2017, I believe you said, right? So for
Yes.
3 years, you start working on, you did all the research, the background stuff. It sounds like you did a really, really good job of the business planning and really determining what this market need is and what the market potential is before you went further into the development. And then you had to develop the solution, right? That
Yes.
nobody else has thought of yet. And you
Yeah,
guys aren't experts in that.
that was a longer journey than we thought it would be. I don't think we thought we were going to be 2.5 to 3 years in R&D,
Yeah.
but we were. So
Okay, so tell me some lessons that you've learned through that process. So from the point of having the light bulb moment of, hey, there seems to be maybe an opportunity here, to today where you have now something that you're prototyping, that you're testing out in the field.
yeah, and I think it was a tough journey with some more difficulty than we expected. First was taking something from R&D to a market product in a university laboratory has a lot of difficulty associated with it, because in a university laboratory, there's very much a focus on the development of papers, on the development of scientific process, on perfection. You don't want to be going to market to a publisher with something that is not absolutely perfect. In startup world, perfection is the enemy. Done is the winner, and done as fast as possible and into the field. And it took us a long time and a lot of work to train out that desire to be perfect and to learn to get it done, but also to balance that scientific rigor, because what we are doing is in fact a scientific process. So my desire to go fast cannot fully override my physicist's desire to do perfect, but a nice balanced combination is what we've been looking for. So that was difficulty number one, was, you don't usually expect your employees to be troublesomely perfect, but ours were. So from there, then we had to figure out how we were going to fund it. We had this impression that money would come. We had a great idea and it would simply be easy. We would open our doors and money would flow in. Not quite how reality happened.
If you build it, they will come, right?
Exactly. It's such a great idea. We'll go tell them, and that'll be that. And I will say, a lot of our friends and family, we told them our idea and they came in and they supported us. And I am so eternally grateful for that faith that our friends and family had put in us. And also the government. We were well supported by grants. If it hadn't been for the federal government and more recently the provincial government stepping in to help us, we'd never, ever have made it this far.
Okay, so on that topic then, yeah, so in all of the years of lead up to this point, so 2.5, 3 years of research and development, that can consume a lot of resources. And so you guys got grants, friends and family have invested and supported you guys on that, probably some debt along the way. Um, Angel investors, probably, right?
We're starting to get to the stage where we're appealing to angel investors.
Okay.
We were under the misapprehension at the beginning that that angel investors would step in much earlier than they would.
Okay.
Canadian, like I cannot speak to U.S. angel investors. Maybe they move a lot earlier. Here in Canada, angel investors need to see real market traction, real revenue before they're interested in stepping in. It's too risky for them to step in on an R&D project. And when we originally started, we didn't properly understand that. We thought that they would be coming in when we had scientific validation of what we were doing. We thought that was the de-risking moment. We were wrong. Market validation is the real de-risking moment that angels are looking for here in Canada.
So once you get that first sale, prove that there's a market that is willing to pay for this technology. That then is going to give enough evidence for some of those angel investors to jump in at that point. Is that what you're saying?
That's generally what we felt, is that as we sign those first few clients, that will be the moment that angels feel really validated with what we're doing. So.
Which doesn't help you a lot when you have 3 years of R&D expenses that has to be covered in some form or another, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long journey in making sure that ends meet in that process. On the other hand, I think that's been good for us. If we'd had a flush bank account at any time, it would have been easier to let spending grow. As it is, when you never quite know where your next chunk of runway is coming from, you play conservatively, and I think that that is wise for a startup. Even though speed is of the essence, conservative spending is also vitally important. So.
Yeah, I can just imagine though how stressful that is as you're going through those research and you're seeing all those expenses piling up, and it's like, oh no, like when is that next bit of funding going to come in? And so sounds like grants, you were successful in getting the federal ones as well as now some provincial ones. Can you tell us or share with us a little bit around that? Because that's probably a very foreign idea for a lot of entrepreneurs to lean on government programs for some of that cost recovery at those early stages. So how did that come about? How do you find those grants? And is there, how easy is that, I guess?
Yeah, and absolutely. I think there is a mentality out there that says, a real business is a bootstrapped one, and government shouldn't necessarily have to step into support. I personally disagree. I think government does an excellent job of supporting entrepreneurs, and it's to our best advantage to take advantage of that. Something like what we're doing, a hardware project with R&D and development, it can bring a lot of benefit to the world, but it's never going to get off the ground if we have to do it just on investor basis, just on a founder basis. And it really biases the world to only allowing for the startups and the inventions of people who already have money or who have a network of high net worth friends. That's not a lot of inventors. So to discount grants is to close the doors against many wonderful innovations that come from people without financial backing. So it's something I'm super passionate about, actually.
It kind of democratizes the ability for startups to occur then that have that longer runway of R&D expense, it sounds like.
Absolutely, because that concept of friends and family that saved us and got us to where we are, many people don't have access to that network of friends and family who can support them. So
okay, so then how difficult is it to, I guess, find or to work the government grant system? Because that takes a lot of effort as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it's as much effort as investor fundraising. We've put a lot of time and effort into finding those grants, writing extensive applications. Usually there's a fair bit of supporting evidence that's required, multiple documents. The longest grant application we did was over 80 pages. Like, it takes work, but it should. The purpose of these is to enable the best ideas and the ones that have the most chance of succeeding. So if your idea is good and it's got a good basis and you can demonstrate it on paper, then that is a great indicator for the government of which projects will succeed. So it's rigorous, but I found it fair. Okay. And I think that we're lucky in that most of the innovation departments are very supportive, so they would be available to help critique what we were doing, to make sure that we were generating the right content. They want to give you the money if you have the right idea. They're not there to block you from it, which is great. They hold your hand and they help you all the way through, which is a wonderful way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, and so now in terms of identifying those potential grant programs, what advice would you give to the viewers today in that research part of their development potentially?
I would say be rigorous, devote a fair bit of time to it, because it's not always obvious and they change frequently. So you have to be, monthly or quarterly, you want to be out there looking for the new grants and for the new applications. If you're in doubt about whether or not you can apply for a grant, the easiest thing to do is pick up the phone and call that grant provider, because they're usually quite happy to answer and let you know if you actually are a good match. They don't want to waste your time any more than you want to waste yours. So feel free to reach out to people. The other great place is if you know other startups who are working in a similar silo, then they'll know about the grants. So I know about all the water grants. If you have a water project coming, shoot me an email. I will tell you all the grants you should be applying for. And then sharing through those networks is a great way of making sure that you're on top of everything.
Awesome. Yeah, it comes down to that networking, knowing people, and asking for help. And I very much concur with what you're saying with regard to those programs or the people who are administering those programs. Their purpose is to distribute that money. And so they really do a lot of hand-holding, a lot of supporting people as they're going through the process of applying and double checking things on their behalf and so on. So there's a lot of support there. So definitely don't feel that you are on an island there, or that it's like, oh, you have to be, lucky to get in or whatever. It's no, like if you're providing good information, connecting with the right people over there and really asking for that assistance, they are more than happy to assist. So that's really cool. So thanks a lot for sharing that, because I think that there's a lot of businesses that just don't even think about the grant side of things. And there is a lot of programs out there to support entrepreneurship and diversification, which is going to be, I think, a bigger and bigger deal here in Alberta as the economy kind of reopens and things are happening here, and we are starting to see the impact of being just in this, oil and gas economy. I think that all governments are going to be wanting to push beyond that a little bit more. And so diversification, anything that'll help with that is going to be great opportunities, I think, for entrepreneurs. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your business then. So you guys are at a point where you have a product now, you're going to market, you're trying to get those first initial sales. How's that going? What are some of the challenges that you guys are experiencing there?
It's going well, I will say. We've luckily, with my experience in oil and gas, connecting to these companies has been easier than it has been for some other entrepreneurs. And I will say for that, certainly we've had a lot of luck through applying through their venture branch and then asking to speak to operations. One of my favorite tricks, because they really want to see that your technology can apply. That's a great way to get a hold of a big company. Lots of the accelerator programs have done really well at putting us in front of the right people, as long as they're aimed at the right market. The challenges that we've had with the mining industry, especially because it's a more conservative industry, is when you come in as a startup, the general first response that we've had is, it's a great idea. I absolutely love it. I would love to buy one. I don't believe you can do it. Yeah. And until you have one in the field, how do you demonstrate that you can? So we were caught in a bit of a catch-22. They want to see case studies. They want to see white papers. They want to see referral clients. How do you knock over that first pin has been the big question for us.
So do you have a prototype then that you could go out and do a beta test or some sort of install, or is it just too costly to get to do that kind of at a reduced fee structure or as an experiment or a beta test?
So what we've done to date is we do have a pilot installed at a water treatment facility. So it's not the right target exactly, but it validates the technology inside a facility. It's not causing any harm. We can see that it's functioning as expected. It removes a lot of those initial barriers that a mining company might bring to the forefront. And it's provided us a nice, safe place to run our testing. It's actually been great. It's been a very good relationship. What we're trying to do now is segue that data and that learning into a pilot with one of these companies. We've received a lot of advice, and we're trying to kind of go on the philosophy that we'd like it to be a paid pilot. I think one of the really interesting pieces of advice I heard once was, even if you can get like a big multinational to pay you $1 to do the pilot, they have to put you into their accounting system to pay you $1. Now you're a vendor, you're kind of in. So our philosophy has been, we don't want to do these free if we can possibly avoid it. It looks like we're getting there, but moving through the process of signing to an actual PO, while we also ourselves face supply chain delays due to COVID. So balancing that, when can we accomplish it, and when are you going to expect it delivered, has been a learning curve for a new business like ours. So
okay. And I mean, there's a lot of people who would be watching this who maybe aren't chasing after those giant multinational companies with hundreds of thousands of dollar value products, right? So you're in the six figures up valuation in terms of what you're trying to sell to these companies. And so a lot of the people who are watching are smaller categories, but I think the same the essence of what you're trying to accomplish is going to be the same regardless as to what the price point is. So somebody who is trying to get into a new market with an unknown brand, it can be really difficult to knock off that first client. Once you have that, like you said, then everything, it's a domino effect. Things just kind of start falling into place because now you can get those referrals, you can get the testimonial, you can show the data, you can show how it's been applied, and so on. So walk me through a little bit more, excuse me, of that strategy, if you can, that is, if it's not too proprietary, in how you are going to get that first pilot project. So what have you been trying to do to get into that business? And I'd imagine you're casting a net fairly wide, targeting a lot of different big multinational mining companies. So what are you doing to get in front of those people?
Yeah, and I think we have developed a strategy now that I'm not sure we saw that we were going to develop at the beginning, but seems to be working now. There's a pretty famous book in the startup world called Crossing the Chasm. And in this book, he kind of outlines the different kind of buyers. So, you have your very conservative people, it's like your grandparents. They're not going to get the new phone until everybody has it and their old one breaks. There's the kind of mid-range people who, once they see everybody's buying it, they'll hop on board. There's your early adopters who will, they're watching. Once you got a few deployments, then they're going to be in. But then that first group are what they call the innovators. They're a really small group of people in big corporations or in whatever your target market is. They exist everywhere. Of people who are fanatic about new technology and just love it.
Yep.
We didn't necessarily develop it this way, but finding those classic innovator types has been vital for us. And I think I read the book, I kind of was like, okay, well, whatever, another business book, until I met a real innovator. Because it was really hard to understand from that book what exactly they were saying until we ran into this guy who was like, yeah, pilot in my facility. Oh my God, it's going to be so cool. We're going to find this out. We're going to do this. And if this happens, we can, immediately was there ready with his own ideas to how to implement it, what he was going to do with the data. That's the kind of person who, if we install our first sensor and something goes wrong, he's not going to throw us out on the curb and that's the end of it and we're done. That's the kind of person who's going to sit down with us and be like, hey, something went slightly wrong. Let's figure out what it was. Let's get past this. If you don't have that kind of person across from you on your first pilot, you are in danger. Finding that person turned out to be, and as soon as we found one, we said, that's what he meant. That's what Phil meant in the book. That's 0 to 1. I can't remember who wrote Crossing the Chasm. My apologies. That was what he meant, was that it was so clear when we met them And then it was easier because once we had our first one, we just went looking for the person who reacted the same to that. So now we've identified a few classic innovators who we think we can work with to get those first deployments out. And that was really the deal maker for us.
So, question for you: how did you find those businesses that had the innovator or innovation kind of mentality? I guess, is that just looking at what they've been doing in the past and kind of seeing what which ones really take on and embrace new technology, or was there some other methodology to identifying these companies?
So that was the first method we used. Is we looked publicly for pilot programs, for innovations, for announcements of projects, to identify those innovative companies. What really worked in the end was finding a few industry groups who helped us spread our name to a vast network of people. So we ended up partnering with the Canadian Excellence in Mining Institute. Okay. They had us put on a webinar and they sent it out to their entire list of contacts. So that's people in the mining industry looking for innovation. It basically made them self-select as innovators. Now, not everybody who showed up in that room was the right person, but a few of them were. And they were the people who were willing to talk about it. Another great break we had was a mining innovation boot camp we just did. The people who come to those kinds of things are by nature, they're self-selecting innovators. So back again to, if you can find an accelerator in your vertical that you're selling into versus the vertical that you exist in. So normally we'd be in water accelerators. Water accelerators are middlingly productive for us. Like, they're nice, they introduce us to people, but it was only when we went for mining accelerators, where we actually were dealing directly with the industry we wanted to sell to, that we suddenly had this breakthrough where we were connecting to those innovators faster.
Fantastic. I love that approach. So that's really going to be helpful, I think, for a lot of businesses out there as they're trying to figure that out. Now, then once you are obviously identifying the companies, especially in your scenario there, you're actually connecting with the people, the champions who are the innovators within those organizations. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, as opposed to the other approach that I suggested at the top, which is like trying to identify in the press and in public releases and so on, the ones who are doing innovative pilot projects and so on. If you identify the company, you still got to figure out, okay, well, who is actually running these things internally, where in this situation, you got right to the person right away.
Yeah, and I mean, to a certain degree, I think with a big multinational, it's a little easier to cold connect to the innovation department because there often is an innovation department. Yeah. So you can go find out who the head of that is on LinkedIn, send them an email. I'm a big fan of cold outreach. I found it remarkably productive, both on the investor side and on the mining side. So, if people aren't finding those accelerators, by all means, go to the head of innovation on LinkedIn, figure out his email and send him an email, and chances are you'll probably get that conversation as well. But yeah, and certainly getting directly to the innovative people has been exceedingly helpful for us. So
yeah, and I like what you're talking about in terms of just embracing cold outreach. That's something that strikes a fear in a lot of people, but the reality of it is if you're going to be successful, you need to bust through that barrier a little bit. And it's not nearly as scary or as difficult as what you think it is, because if you have something of value to offer somebody else, and you frame it, communicate it so that they understand the value that's there, there's a really good chance that they're actually going to respond to that. And so, yeah, those cold outreaches into LinkedIn or cold outreaches or introduction requests through networks or associations or whatnot really help. And I would think too, depending on even in the granting side of things, sometimes those people who are helping out on the grant side are connected in with some of those industries. So I know Western diversification funds and stuff, some of the people who are administering those funds are really well connected within the industries in which they're operating. And so they can do some warm introductions for you as well, which just go a tremendously long way.
And just to kind of add to that, those groups like WD and IRAP is another one that's very good for making connections. they appreciate being asked for that kind of thing. Like, they like it when you come to them for something other than money. They want to have value in the community and in the ecosystem above and beyond writing checks. So never feel hesitant to go to these people and ask. They're usually thrilled to have the opportunity to do something to help. So
Yeah. Well, fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing some of the knowledge that you've acquired along the way here, identified some of the things that have been working for you. I know that we're going to have some people on this call that are going to want to reach out to you and connect in some form or another. So how would be the best way for people to do that? Is it email? Is it social? Can you tell us how we can connect with you?
yeah, absolutely. And I have the joy of having a unique enough name that I'm easy to find. So you can add me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect to people that way. Please go ahead and email me. My email is asargeaunt@2swater.com. I'm always happy to connect to people. I want to be able to give back as much as I've been given to. So happy to answer questions. Happy to talk to people about working with granting agencies or what we've done to connect to big multinationals. Always a pleasure to be able to help where we have been helped. And of course, if you know a big mining multinational, feel free to send that my way too.
Excellent. Exactly. Help out wherever we can. It's one big community, whether we're talking about great big, huge, products and services that we're offering, or it's somebody who's selling some new little widget to a consumer market. We're all entrepreneurs. We're in this somewhat together, and there's lessons that can be learned from everybody. So thank you for sharing yours. And everybody, if you are interested in learning more about different entrepreneurial stories, to become inspired or to basically get a leg up in your research or in some of the development work that you're doing on your business, please head over to amplimedia.com/amplify. You're going to see a whole host of archived episodes there. And I hope that you enjoyed this one. If you did, like it, share it, and we'll see you, I guess, in the next episode. Take care, everybody.